Hello.
It's Miracle Mom and Michael.
Welcome back, everyone. If you watched a previous segment called, what did we call it, Mom? Living in a Death Machine. If you watched that
Which is
segment,
what we're all living in one.
we're all living in a death machine. If you watched that segment, then this is the continuation of that segment. I told two near-death experiences that I had in my life. They weren't out-of-body experiences. Sometimes a near-death experience is accompanied by an out-of-body experience where you're actually dead for a little while, and those are your typical near-death experiences. These are more like brushes with death, close brushes with death. Should have died. I count those as near-death experiences. But these two near death experiences are not about me almost dying. They're about two people in my life that would have died if I were not there.
Okay. I've not heard these either.
Mm. You might have heard one of them, and I'll start with that one. No,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
start with I'll start with the other one, and that'll be a tease. The one I was going to start with, you may have heard about, but I'll start with the second one. So I lived in Acapulco, Mexico for about 5 months. You remember this, right?
Acapulco.
Well, I lived in Mexico.
Okay. I'm not sure I remember. Was this?
I was a missionary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was asistí a un misionero en Acapulco, Mexico, y aprendí español. So what I just said is I was assisting or helping a missionary family in Acapulco, Mexico, and I was learning Spanish.
Was
And
that when you were at Jerry's church?
No, this was just prior to that, actually.
Oh, okay.
This was literally, I left Mexico and went to that church. Um, while I was there, well, number one, if you know the geography of that part of Mexico, Acapulco is a bay. It's the Bay of Acapulco. And then just south of that bay, there's obviously more beach. But south of the Bay of Acapulco is extremely dangerous. You do not go swimming, you don't go into the water deeper than your knees. Well, at least the locals there. If you look at the locals in that part of the in that part of Mexico, just south of Acapulco, the locals who live along the beach, along the coast there, don't go in the water below their knees because there's a shelf that drops deep. The continental shelf. It's a rapid decline right off the beach there, and there's very very strong undertows that suck people out into the deep ocean. Uh, undercurrents that pull them out. In fact, one time when we were down there, we used to go because that's the impoverished part of the outskirts of Mexico is 80% abject poverty, and so we would go down there and help the poor. We would deliver toothpaste and toothbrushes and crayons and whatever, and then teach. Well, I didn't speak Spanish very well, but the missionaries that I worked with, they would teach some Bible stories, and just it was outreach. And I saw my first dead body on the beach there one time, and
Oh,
and
wow.
ironically, it was a Mexican national, but he was from DF, the district, the Distrito Federal. The capital city is Mexico City is called DF. That's DF, Distrito Federal. And so tourists from Mexico City would go to Acapulco all the time. They go down to those beaches where everything's cheaper and go swimming. And this was a father. His family was kids and wife were just bawling, and the crowd was gathered around him. And somebody had pulled him out and laid him on the beach. And that was the first time I'd actually seen a person who had just died. Anyway, that's not my near death experience. Mine was actually within the bay of Acapulco. It was even in the bay, there can be some strong undercurrents, but I happened to be on the beach with a couple of friends, and there was a girl. I don't know, she might have been anywhere from 9 to 12 years old, and she was having trouble getting back in. The tide would pull her back out, and she would swim and swim. And just as she's almost got her feet on the beach, she couldn't get back in. She couldn't. And somebody was yelling for help. Somebody's yelling for help, and I had a boogie board with me, and I just instinctively just ran, jumped in, and pulled her to safety.
Wow. You were there at the right time.
I was the man for that moment, and I'm not saying that she would have died. Somebody else might have done it,
Yeah.
but uh, it was I moved. I acted. I didn't even think twice, and so uh, I I didn't even when it was over with. I didn't really think I had done anything special. I just had done what I felt anybody would do, and so. But,
Right.
but then when I reflect back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I saved a life. I actually saved a human's life. That was
Right.
their near death experience. So I was
Was her
used.
family was all there also?
I assume I don't even remember anything
You don't
after that.
remember?
I got her out of the water and went on my way.
Yeah. Wow.
um, all right. So then the other one. Here's the other story. That wasn't the first time I had saved a person from drowning. Um, I think it was. I think I was about 15, 14, 15. I'm trying to remember when this was because I was with you. And
15.
how old was Phil when we moved from Northern California to Kentucky?
I think he was somewhere around 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think this must have been
Ashland. It was in Ashland, Kentucky. We moved to
right.
first time.
So I think that was
You were in 10th grade.
yeah, but I didn't go with you. I was living with dad when you moved. So I don't
Oh,
remember. I was around that time though. I might have come and visited. I don't know. Maybe it's when I moved because you guys moved when I was in like 8th grade and I stayed with dad for 2 years and then moved in with you in 10th grade. Oh, maybe it was when I lived with you guys and we went somewhere. I don't remember the details, but we were at a hotel. Um, just arrived at the hotel, I think, and maybe had just checked into a room. And then we were walking around, at least Phil and I were walking around checking out the hotel. There was like a courtyard and a pool, and we're walking along. And I remember walking along, and I just had this instinct, and I turn around, and it's the pool, and I look in the pool, and I see Phil at the bottom of the pool.
wow.
Did you not? Have I never told you this story?
No,
I see
I
Phil
surely would have.
at the bottom of the pool. I jumped straight in. I remember distinctly swimming up to him, and he's just standing there, eyes wide, kind of hands out to the side, floating in the water. He didn't know how to swim. He's like 2, 3 years old, and he's just at the bottom of the deep end. And I pull him up.
Oh my gosh. Boy, maybe I wasn't there.
Maybe not. Maybe it was just with Larry. I don't know, but it was.
No,
I
I do not remember that at all. I
I
surely would have remembered.
I bet he doesn't remember. I bet Phil does. I wonder. I should ask him if he remembers it.
Yeah, you need to ask him.
But
Yeah, he was little, that's for sure.
and it's like we must have just been out walking, and I'm looking around, and I pass the pool, and I'm a teenager. I know not to step into the pool, and he probably just was like running along and just bloop.
Oh yeah.
And maybe I heard the splash. Maybe that's what made me turn around. I don't remember hearing a
Oh
splash.
my
I
gosh.
just remember turning around and looking down into the water. Like, what if I didn't even
Wow.
look into the water? You could just like look around. Huh? I wonder what that was, and move on. But I remember looking down
Yeah.
into the water and seeing this figure dove straight in.
Oh my gosh. gosh.
So,
Wow.
yeah, that really happened.
And I can picture him doing that. That's the kind of kid he was
Yep.
when he was little. He had no fear.
Right?
Nothing.
Balls out.
He'd jump off of
Oh.
stuff. He would, well, I mean, he had no idea. Oh, there's some water. He'll jump in there. That would be him.
I'm very curious if he remembers. I wonder if I think I've mentioned it to him, so maybe he remembers it, maybe he doesn't. As long as he doesn't think I made this up so that now I have some power over him. Hey, I saved your life, man. I saved your life, dude.
Oh, boy. Yeah, right. Oh, you just, every day, we don't, that things like that are happening to people all over the place. And it's just amazing.
Well, there's tragedies as well, but
Oh, of course.
I have a final thought. Do you have a final thought, Mom?
Not right off.
All right. If you think of one, cut me off. Otherwise, this will be the final thought.
Okay, you cut us off.
Um, in thinking about that, why are some people rescued from death and why are some people not? And there's plenty of theological discussion about that. But all I want to say is death is not the end.
True.
So when you die, it's there, right? When you die, there's a date when you die. Unless unless you don't, right? That's one of our other topics. Unless you don't die, but those of us, whoever, maybe it's the vast majority of us, maybe it's almost none of us, who knows? But those who die in Christ, it's just temporary. It's not. I mean, it's tragic and sorrowful, especially if it's unexpected, and it's tragic and sorrowful for those who remain. But for those who die, it's this crossing a threshold into, oh, I get it. I see everything. I see what's going on, right? That's you enter into the Lord's presence and oh, that's what it's all about. Okay, then this time comes when we return, right? The righteous. In fact, it's kind of leading into. I want to do a Bible chat segment next. Um,
Okay.
the righteous dead will rise first. That's the verse I want to use. So that's my final thought. If you want to hear my thoughts on the righteous dead rising first, then you'll have to find that segment, whatever it's titled. I don't know yet. But say bye, Mom.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.